My name is Victor Lund. I'm the CEO of RE Technology, and welcome to today's RE Techinar, which is our webinar series. And today's topic is iPad listing presentation. So we're very proud and happy to have two distinguished guests with us today to talk about the iPad listing presentation. We have one of the revered technologists in our industry, Greg Robertson, as well as one of the top agents in the Los Angeles area, Jeremy Lehman. So we're going to get started here today. Greg, if you could advance the slide. So these are our three panelists. I'm going to open the conversation and just talk generally about listing presentations and provide you with an overview of some of the best strategies that are being deployed across the industry today. We're also going to invite Jeremy Lehman, who's the Chief Technology Officer at the Boutique Realty Group. He's also, he actually goes out and does listing presentations. So he's also a selling agent. And he's going to talk about what they're doing in LA, some cutting-edge trends that he sees emerging in the market and how he's able to be successful with his iPad listing presentation. And then lastly, we're going to invite Greg Robertson, who started one of the more exciting cloud-based CMA solutions in our industry, to talk about some of the technology innovation in real estate that has helped some of these iPad presentations really come to life with exciting information for consumers. So with that, if you could just advance the slide one more time, Greg. So I'm just going to start by, as I mentioned, laying the foundation for some of the interesting trends that are happening in listing presentations today. And there's really about 5 key things that you want to examine that really help make your listing presentation sing. You have to remember that when you're sitting down in front of a seller, that there's a lot of information that they don't have and you're full of it. I don't mean that in a bad way. But you really need to begin by telling your story and explaining how a realtor can help a consumer be successful and how you're delivering marketing strategies, what your secret sauce is, and really explain the differences between some of the consumer websites out there and some of the professional websites out there, because as consumers, especially sellers, go to get a lot of information about the real estate marketplace so they can join you in understanding that the pricing that you're suggesting for their property is going to be the most competitive pricing to get the greatest value out of their home. You really need to let them know what the differences are. So if they're searching on a site like Zillow and they see a Zestimate, which is what they believe to be an estimate of what their home is worth, you have to be able to walk them through and explain what's really going on. So in your iPad listing presentation, it's really important to have a really good CMA overview. And you can pull up your iPad today and you can look through active listings, pending listings, sold listings, off-market listings, expired listings, and really tell them what role each of those things play in establishing the value of a home. When you examine the CMA, you can explain things like the impact of square footage on a property, what the similar age of construction is for a property, how similar amenities may benefit or depreciate the value of a home, what the impact is of upgrades, the condition of the property and the location. So all of these things are ways in which the real estate agent can use the iPad to really walk a seller through a real good understanding of how it is that you arrived at your opinion of the value of their home. As you look at the seller CMA specifically and you go through home pricing, make sure that you talk about a pricing strategy. So one of the things that we've recognized here in California, and certainly Jeremy is likely to talk about this, but pricing aggressively to the market actually yields the highest possible price. In San Francisco, for example, where days on market are down to 10, we often see a lot of people in bidding wars for properties, and certainly in hot markets down in Los Angeles and across the country, this is continuing to emerge. Market trends are very important. Average days on market helps the seller understand, or you set an expectation for how many days their property is likely to be listed before they get an offer or go into closing. And then you also want to talk about how lifestyle plays a role in people's decision making. So, a lot of people are using some applications like WalkScore and other things that we'll see here today that help to appreciate why a neighborhood with a particular property becomes important. Don't forget, even when you're developing buyers for a subject property, it's a really good idea to send out a buyer CMA. We see a lot of real estate agents building buyer CMAs and sending that to the representative of the buyer. and or having those available at open houses and things like that. So remember, it's a good idea to have a buyer listing presentation as well as a seller listing presentation. The last thing is be sure to ask a whole bunch of questions. So if a consumer has a price in their mind for what they want to market their home for, you need to understand how they arrived at that price and go back through and talk about the mitigating factors which they may want to consider in their pricing decision with you. Some of the things that you can do is you can look at home valuations for lead generation. You can Greg is going to walk us through some API scripting for your website that actually generates seller leads. And we'll even talk for a little bit about which iPad you should buy. They come in a few different sizes. So you want to make sure that you're really prepping yourself in the best possible way to be successful. So with that, I'd like to just kind of turn it over to Jeremy. If you want to, I'd like to invite you, Jeremy, to walk us through some of the stuff that you're doing today in your listing presentations that would benefit realtors to understand and adopt.
Well, thank you. Are we going to do Greg or Jeremy?
Oh, Greg.
Victor, I'll go first here now.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, thank you. I like that stuff, Victor, because it really gives kind of a good overview of the different things out there. What I like to tell agents a lot of times, and this is from a lot of experience of hearing a lot of agent stories, is that there's really three things you want to accomplish in a listing presentation. The first thing is obviously establish yourself as a professional, and that can be from showing up on time, dressing for the part, or having the right tools. And I think having a tablet or an iPad really kind of shows a great level of professionalism. And then the second thing is present a suggested list price. And this is through some of the things that you talked about that are doing the research, doing the work that it takes to kind of come up with that. And the third is get the listing. Steps 1 and 2 don't matter unless you actually, walk out of there with a signed listing contract, right? And that, to me, is kind of a broad overview. But with this, I really want to kind of dive into, okay, you have this new thing. You got your iPad. How can you use it in your business, right? When I went to a recent, I think it was a Success Summit that Tom Ferry ran, they did a kind of survey with some of their top agents, and they asked everybody, how do you do a listing presentation? What are you using? What kind of tools are you using in a listing presentation? And this is the kind of stat they came up with. 60% of them are still using paper, 31% are using tablets, and then 9% are using their laptop. And I wish I had the figures that was the year before, but I don't. But I will update this when I go again this year. But I thought that was kind of very interesting to find out that paper is kind of a big factor in that, and that's going to be something that I'm going to talk about here in a second here. But when I say paper, and I'm hoping that none of the agents out there are kind of using MLS printouts. To me, this is just the worst thing you can actually do. Number one, it makes you look like everybody else, because I think, unfortunately, a lot of agents are still using MLS printouts at their listing presentations. And number two, I think it's just they're kind of awful. I mean, they're small text, small photos. You really can't, read anything. The readability of these reports are just awful. So whatever you're doing, stop using MLS printouts and start using something else here, right? But if I talk about rules that we have, that we've kind of, after discussing a lot with agents, we have for using a tablet listing presentation. The first thing is, we always say to people, is don't use your tablet as a teleprompter, right? So some of the best presenters out there, what they do is they, and you have to think of this as a presentation, of course, is some of the best speakers out there, a lot of times the slides that they use are just going to be a picture, and they talk about that picture, but that picture kind of, emphasizes the points that they're making. Number two, and this I think is very super important, your tablet is a supplement to your printed CMA, not a replacement, okay? You got to think about the size of a tablet computer, what kind of information that you put on there. You can't really go into the stuff that Victor talked about, square footage, beds versus, listing price versus sale price of the comps, and all these different things there, on the small screen of an iPad. So what the iPad is good for is kind of doing a presentation, showing comps and photos and things like that. But what you want to do is you want to have a report that you can kind of give to them. If you're into being a paperless agent, that's fine too. You can just send them an email to a link to a PDF you might have generated. So it doesn't have to be something printed. Although a lot of agents tell me, and I think that 60% stat shows it, that there's a kind of an old saying in real estate: if you go to a listing presentation empty-handed, that's likely how you'll leave, right? So I do think, having a tablet there, but also having a printed CMA is really kind of a good 1-2 punch in a listing presentation. And then number 3, I talk about, it's really a listing presentation, not a research session. Some agents do it differently, but what I kind of akin to is like walking into a, doing the math or doing the work in front of your seller is akin to going to a job interview and writing your resume right there, right? You got to be prepared. Have your resume written, show up, and then therefore you can kind of present why you're the agent they should work for, or the employee they should hire. And the 4th is, and this is becoming less and less. When the iPad first came out, the sheer kind of novelty of it kind of overtook things, where they go, wow, that's pretty cool. I can see you can swipe and pinch and all this kind of thing, and kind of overshadowed everything, right? So it's important, I think, for everybody to remember that it's about you, not your tool. So don't let your tools outshine the message that you're giving, right? So, and I think that's very, very important rule when you're using a tablet in a listing presentation. When I think about what I think is the single best use of a tablet in a listing presentation, it's got to be showing comps, right? A lot of times sellers are going to have objections over the suggested list price that you came up with your home. Showing photos on an iPad is really the single best use of it at a listing presentation. You can show them, well, the reason why I think your house should be priced this way is because if you look at some of the competition, some of the recently sold prices, look at that kitchen. See how much they've kind of upgraded that. Look at that backyard. Look at those things. But, a picture tells 1,000 words, and I think really a tablet really shines in that type of capacity. If you're going to show a lot of minutia data, save that for the printed report or the PDF you send afterwards. Really what you want to use that tablet for is really showing photos of comps. And so those are kind of 4 rules we came up with and what we've learned from agents as far as how, what are some of the best practices of using a tablet in a listing presentation. Now I know Jeremy, I'm anxious to kind of switch this over to Jeremy because he's a working agent right now, and I think he's got a lot of stories, and some recently here, hopefully, Jeremy, that can kind of talk about how he uses a tablet. And let me go ahead and see if I can change the presenter back to you, Jeremy, and see if you can kind of go there.
So while you're switching it over, I just want to remind everyone in the audience that we do have 2 prizes to give away at the end of today's RE Techinar. So be sure to hang on and have a chance at winning an iPad and some other things. Also, in the chat box, if you're having any problems viewing the presentation or hearing the presentation, just type your problem in there, and we have staff on board who will help you out with that. And lastly, in the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a questions area, and in the questions area, if you put in your questions, we'll be answering them at the end. So Jeremy, roll us through your rockstar listing presentation that you do on the iPad.
Sounds good. Let's do this. Can you guys see my screen okay?
You bet.
Okay. So I'm a local realtor here in Orange County, and I'm also the Chief Technology Officer of the Boutique Real Estate Group. And so I mentor about 25, 30 agents now, I think we have, in going digital in their business. And believe it or not, it's not nearly as techy as you might think. I'm also the president of our local board, and I work with Apple here locally as a real estate industry expert in implementing iPad and some of the mobile technology into our business. So my digital listing presentation starts with the Cloud CMA presentation, which I'll show you guys here in a few minutes. Part of me showing up with my iPad also allows me to have that pricing dialogue that Greg and Victor had mentioned, and I dive directly into the MLS for that as well. Using my iPad in a listing presentation also allows me to show my videos live. I literally go to our YouTube channel live with them, and if they have questions about our marketing, I can pull up other pieces as well. I'll go to our websites, our single property websites, things like that, and really give them a live look at what we do to market homes. At the end of my presentation, I'm hoping for a signature on contracts. So I've got technology on my iPad that allows me to edit and sign contracts live, which I'll show you guys a little bit about that. And then, the iPad allows me to look up other stuff. During the the listing presentation, the seller has questions that I may not have answers to, and having a device there that's connected to the web that allows me to go online and find those answers is way better than telling the person, well, I don't have that answer right now, let me just get back to you later. So the most important part of my listing presentation is all the work I do pre-listing. And that's a part where I notice a lot of agents don't really do a lot of work, or you sort of scramble last minute to try to make things happen. And so we put a lot of work up front in our pre-listing package. So, the first step, of course, is to prepare and educate myself. And I'll drive through a neighborhood, especially if I'm not familiar with it, go preview as many listings as I can, and obviously dig into the MLS, which is, our most valuable asset as real estate agents, and find comps in things that homes that are worth more or less than the property that I'm looking at, and how do they compare, that sort of thing. One of the coolest things about my MLS, once again, I'm in Orange County, my MLS is CRMLS, and we have a matrix system, and Cloud CMA is integrated with our MLS, and so I have a button right there in my MLS system that allows me to select all the listings that would normally print or whatever, and literally push them right into the Cloud CMA system, which is very, very cool. So if you're in Southern California, or with CRMLS for that matter, maybe, I don't know, Greg, if you're still on, do you guys have that integration with other MLSs as well? You there? Maybe you can chime in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Cloud CMA has integration with the top 5 MLS vendors in the country. So whether it's Matrix, Paragon, who else, Rapatoni, or Flex MLS, we have total tight integration with all those MLSs.
So look at that button.
I guess most agents today should be able to see that Cloud CMA integration in their MLS, and if not, they should contact their MLS executive and find out where that button is, or if it's not available, when it will be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would ask for it. If
Correct.
you have Cloud CMA in your market, ask them to integrate it. It's life-changing to have that right there in the MLS. And I do a lot of training here locally, and I'm blown away at how many agents didn't realize that button exists. Just sort of added it one day, and so anyway, it's there. It's pretty cool, and basically allows me to push the listings that I want to use in my CMA right into Cloud CMA, and this is kind of what that setup screen looks like. It's incredibly easy to use. They do classes on it twice a day, I think, still, and so you can go weekdays. You can go watch one of their webinars or videos and see how to do that. And when you're done with the presentation, it's pretty. I always say this, especially when Greg's around, but I think Cloud CMA is the most beautiful way to present MLS info. I mean, Greg nailed it. When you print out the MLS from the MLS, it's just ugly. And this is just a beautiful way to present the info. And we have a custom theme that we've upgraded to that makes it look even better. It's branded for my team, and it's just we just like plain and simple, but we think it looks fantastic. So those are a couple of the ways that the properties are displayed through the CMA. And then I'm going to email the CMA directly to the seller as soon as I create the CMA. So once again, I've set the appointment already. I've got an appointment with that seller. Maybe it's later on today or tomorrow morning. I'm going to email them the CMA ahead of time and maybe point out a few things to them beforehand. I also
so in a way, you're kind of getting control of the customer even before you show up at their door.
Absolutely. I think it's such an important part of it. Giving them the CMA ahead of time, in my experience at least, and I should also note that I'm not an agent that dominates my market in a way that everybody knows who I am. I'm not struggling, but many times I'm meeting sellers, they've never heard of me before. So I have to sort of overcome that I've never heard of you, I don't trust you sort of stigma that happens when we meet people we don't know. And so anyway, were there like 50,000 realtors in the Los Angeles area? Something like that? Oh, easily. Yeah. Our board, just one of 12 local boards, we have over 13,000 members. So there's a board right next to us that has equally the same amount. There's a ton, and that's just in Orange County, let alone LA. And we have several other boards around us. So amazing. So even though this is an iPad presentation, I like what Greg said as well, and that is, you want to show up with something printed. I don't show up with something printed, but I do print and bind it and drop it off, and I want it to look beautiful. I want to stand out against my competition. So I spent a little bit of money to make my stuff look good, and I have a binding machine right here in my office. and I'll bind the CMA or stack them up for my kids to bind them later on when they get home from school, and we'll throw them in an envelope and drop them off before the appointment, depending on when the appointment is. This is kind of what it looks like bound. Once again, it's a beautiful looking CMA, and it's way better than any other agent in my area is gonna present for the listings that I'm going after at least. And then here's another screenshot. They have kind of cool color scheme for the sold and things like that. I also throw a folder in there with samples of my marketing materials that are relevant for that area. I printed out and had designed a page with my Zillow testimonials on there. And also, if it's relevant, I'll print out our recent sales in that neighborhood to kind of show them that this is an area that we work and specialize in. And then here it is, as untech as it gets. I throw it in an envelope and I drop it off at the front door. And I either call them or email them and let them know I'm dropping it off in an hour or whatever it is, and they can take a look at it. Lastly, before I set the appointment, or before I go on the appointment, I set up the listing contracts. I'm anticipating taking a listing that day when I meet with the seller, and so why wouldn't I have pre-set up the listing contract? I know their name, I know their address. Sometimes because I've sent them the CMA ahead of time, we even discuss the price over the phone and agree on pricing. So there are, probably 20 to 30% of my appointments, I'm literally just showing up to take the listing. This has kind of sold them on the fact that we're the guys to work with, and we've already set everything up. We discuss commissions and everything if that's their questions on the phone. So then we kind of move on to the listing appointment, and so I literally just show up with my iPad, and simply because I've already dropped off everything that I think is necessary for the appointment. It's just a flow that works for me, and I think this is something as an agent you'll just have to discover on your own. I don't go on thousands of listing appointments, but when I go on a listing appointment, 95% of the time I get the listing, which is pretty cool. Our team has a really incredibly high ratio of the listings that we take, and I think it's because of the preparation that we do ahead of time. So,
and Jeremy,
also,
is your iPad? Sorry, do you have Wi-Fi only, or do you have kind of a cellular contract with that?
Oh, I definitely have the cellular setup. You've got to be connected. If you're an agent, it's the cost of being an agent in 2014, right? You've got to have an iPad that's on the web all the time.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
There's just no way to do business without it. It's changed my world for sure. So anyway, yeah, you got to have the ability to connect to the web.
Do you ever have connectivity problems, or is that just a benefit of living in Orange County? You have awesome wireless access.
Yeah, there's only one condo building where I have connectivity problems on the bottom floor. Kind of like 5 floors, and if I'm downstairs in one of the middle units, I can't get on, and so that's the only situation where I've got to borrow my client's Wi-Fi, which is a nightmare. But you got to do what you got to do. So other than that, I've had zero issues. I kind of pre-scouted out too to know. You can always show up ahead of time with your iPad and see what connectivity might be like. So it's certainly part of our homework.
Yeah, that is a best practice. So when we always encourage agents when they go to a listing appointment and they're going to use their iPad to access information in real time on the web, that they always test that connection right when they arrive to make sure that they're not going to roll into something and then not have the tool available to answer the customer's question. So you kind of have to control the question around your availability or the access that you have to the internet if you plan to pull up anything live. So that's the other nice thing about the iPad is that you can have a canned presentation, but you can also reach into the internet and get the information that you need, whether it's from the MLS or any other resource. So that's great.
That's exactly it. So a lot of my stuff is stored on my iPad as well, which kind of makes sense. So okay, yeah, let me go to the next one. So when I get there, I don't go right into a presentation. I literally go through the process of, I ask them the question, can you show me around? Some agents I know want to walk through the home themselves. We all develop our own flow. And, back to why I show up with only my iPad, one of the things I've discovered in my business, and it might just be a geographic thing of where I typically go on listing appointments, but I just find that when I show up with a bunch of stuff that the seller's guard tends to be up a little bit more. They might be a little concerned because I have so many papers and things like that. And when I show up empty-handed, literally just holding an iPad, man, the conversation is really easygoing. And when I say, can you show me around, we just kind of walk around the house. We got usually a really, really good rapport going by the time we sit down for some Q&A. And so, for me, the listing presentation really is a questions and answer session. I don't even turn on my iPad until it's time to answer a question that I need the iPad for. Once again, they've gotten the CMA ahead of time. They've seen it. They've read it. I'm wondering if they have any questions. And their questions inevitably are going to be, how much do you think you can get for my house? And if they don't ask me that question, then I'll ask them, have you thought about how much you want for your home? Or that's typically my reply to that question. I want to see where they're at pricing-wise. And luckily for me in this market, it's kind of crazy, but 50, 60% of the time, we agree on price, and there's really not a lot of discussion. I don't have to prove a lot of stuff to them. But I do take into account the fact that sometimes they don't know who I am, and I just assume they don't trust me yet. And so I like to take the transparent approach when it comes to the pricing conversation. So there's a couple ways to go about this. First of all is the Cloud CMA iPad presentation. If you take a look at it, it's beautiful. You saw Greg's screenshot a little bit ago with the pictures. It just really is a beautiful way to display, once again, kind of that information and look professional in front of your client. Nobody else is doing this, guys. It's just one more way to set yourself apart. So a couple screenshots of what this looks like as you're going through, and you're just literally hitting the next button through this presentation, and it just comes directly from the Cloud CMA site, which, one of the things I'll point out too is cloudcma.com is 100% iPad compatible. It works like a mobile app. They don't need an app in the App Store to have it. I think, Greg, I'll say this again, I think you should have an app in the App Store only because a lot of the students in my classes are always asking, where's that Cloud CMA app? But you just go directly to cloudcma.com and log in on your iPad, and it's just like an app, and you can create a shortcut on your desktop to quickly access it. So this is, once again, another screenshot of what that presentation looks like. And
do you want to, can you go back there for 1 second?
Yeah.
For everybody who's on the call today, if you go and you hit the plus button on your iPad when you're viewing a web page, that creates an icon and puts it out on your it looks like an app, but basically it's a quick link or a bookmark directly to it. So if you really want to put all the tools that you're going to use on your iPad on one page or in one folder, you can just use that functionality to take a website and make it into an app.
One of the cool things about cloudcma.com is they actually have this little pop-up. Greg, this is genius. When you guys did this, there's a little pop-up when you go to the site that says, would you like to add this to as a shortcut? And they show you how to do that. So you almost don't even have to worry about it. It's automatic. Really cool stuff. Part of that pricing conversation for me is, you got to dig into the MLS even more. I think having pre-printed comps is really good, but a new level of transparency is when I pull up everything that's sold in their neighborhood. So if they're really sticky on price and they just don't agree with me and we're really kind of getting into it, then I go directly into the MLS, and I'm lucky enough to have a mobile MLS solution here in Southern California. If you don't, I know a lot of MLS are launching soon, but the reality is most MLSs also work on the iPad now. So you can just dive right into your MLS. And so in this case, I'm able to draw kind of a circle around that neighborhood so they know that the comps that we're talking about are right there, and we can go into pricing. And what's really interesting, if you've ever done this, then I'm sure you've had the same experience, but many agents just don't believe this truly happens. When I pull this up on my iPad, the actual solds in the neighborhood, and it's live in the MLS, most of the time the seller pulls the iPad out of my hand or asks politely to take it out of my hand, and they want to see this. You have to remember that Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com and all these other sites don't keep the sold listings the same way unless the agent adds them afterwards, which is incredibly rare. So the seller doesn't have this as easy, and the other sites will lag behind several months many times on sold. So once again, it's a really valuable part of that listing appointment, and I just find when I dig into the MLS directly, it just really, their guard comes way down, and we just have a great open dialogue about pricing, and they can see for themselves, as Greg was showing you with the pictures in Cloud CMA, they can see, wow, that one has a really nice kitchen, and mine hasn't been updated. So they start to evaluate their own pricing strategy without me having to hound them too much about it. Another question that comes up in the listing presentation is, how are you going to market my home? How do you stand out against the other agents? Why should I pay you X amount of commission? And so, I'm using my iPad to go into, like I said before, our YouTube channel. our single property websites. I show off our featured listings on different websites. I show off our before and after staging photos. So I'm using my iPad as an interactive means to show them what I do to earn that commission. And it's a really neat experience, and once again, it's presented on the iPad, way easier than doing it on a laptop, and much more effective than having this printed out on a piece of paper saying I do video, when they can actually watch the video and hear the sounds and that sort of thing. And lastly, I use Zipform Mobile in my market to do live contract editing and signing. So, like I told you before the appointment, I just think it's a professional thing to do to be prepared. I know who lives at the property. I've got public records to know all the details of the property. The only thing I really need to add or amend to this contract typically is the price and maybe adjust the commission. Maybe they're going to, they want to keep the chandelier in the living room, so I add it as an exclusion in the listing agreement. But I'm just not editing the form very much at all. And so it's not a chore whatsoever for me to open up the form on my iPad and then go through the process of editing that form and having them sign it live. When I'm done signing in California, they get a copy of it right away. It's just really incredible technology. And I teach this here at our local board quite often, and I'm just sort of blown away at the amount of agents that are scared to use, Zipform Mobile or DocuSign or some of these other mobile tools to be able to create and edit contracts and sign contracts. My clients love this process. I don't have tons of paperwork everywhere. It works very similar to the process of signing an actual piece of paper. And once again, the technology's never let me down, and so it's a pretty cool thing. So
I love the fact that, as you said before, Jeremy, that just showing up and not having like all these accoutrements with you, right? The big folders and the pens and the pencils and just that whole briefcase you could bring in there, really, I think, puts the shields down for the sellers or makes them feel a lot more comfortable. But you're still prepared to kind of get, as I said before, what the whole goal is to get the listing, to get that contract signed. That's really brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah. I just, it's awkward for me if it's awkward for them, and we've all been in that scenario. And I hate to make people feel uncomfortable. And since we've all been on the other side of that process, just the experience for me that the meeting flows so much better if I don't bring that stuff. So. And it's easier for me. I don't have to scan documents and stuff like that. All the technology is there for us to start everything electronically. Printing paper sort of interrupts that paperless transaction process for us. So we just choose not to print. If I have a couple more minutes, guys, I'd love to just share a couple extra favorite features of Cloud CMA. So that's my digital listing presentation. Really simple, like I said, not nearly as techy as you think it is, and actually much easier than most people will give it credit for. I've been using Cloud CMA for quite some time, for a few years now at least. Ever since I became an agent in 2008, I think it's been around, and so it's improved over time. But one of my favorite features is the quick and dirty CMA. And Greg, I might be stealing your thunder, but the quick and dirty CMA allows you to email Cloud CMA and get a CMA back in your email within literally a minute or two. And so I've got just saved in my contacts 3 email addresses. One is CMA@cloudcma.com, one is tour@cloudcma.com, and one is property@cloudcma. And there's buyer's tours, property reports, and CMAs that can be prepared. And then all you need to do for the CMA is type in the address in the body of the email. The subject line is who it's for. And within literally a minute or two, they email you a link to the presentation. So if you're ever out on the road and need a quick property valuation or something like that, Victor had mentioned web leads, and last night or yesterday afternoon I got a web lead, and those pictures you saw of my presentation were literally the Cloud CMA, my pre-listing packet that I dropped off this morning right before this call. And so this is all live stuff, but if you're ever in a bind, you can easily do a quick and dirty CMA, or better yet, a quick and dirty property tour. If your clients are sending you MLS numbers for the properties they want to see, you can just simply email the MLS numbers to tour@cloudcma.com, and they'll send you back a property tour. Which leads me to my next slide, and that is using the iPad for your buyer tour. So when I talk about being paperless, the only time I typically print anything out is for the pre-listing packet. I don't print property tours. I've done one in 2014, and the clients are big friends of mine, and they made fun of me because I tout myself as being paperless, and it wasn't. But I just throw the property tour on an iPad just like this, and they can literally just swipe through it like it's a book. I've never had one client complain about having an iPad instead of printed papers. I saved myself a ton of money. I saved myself a lot of time because I don't have to be in an office to prepare for the buyer tour. And I think there's still a little bit of a cool factor. I also email it to them before we meet up as well. And many times they'll have the property tour opened up on their phones. And so I just think it's a really cool way to display the information in kind of a new way. And I'm saving trees, I guess, so we can say that.
If you want to hear something crazy, Jeremy, in San Francisco, there are a number of agents at some of the leading firms that they actually have purchased numerous iPads. They put all the information that they want to share with a customer on an iPad. They put it in a custom iPad cover that has their company brand and information on it with their contact information embossed on the inside. They go to the listing presentation. They deliver the presentation on the iPad. They hand it to the customer and say, I'll be back in a few days to pick it up after if you haven't already made your decision.
Wow.
If you list with me, you just keep that iPad.
Love it.
It's amazing.
A whole new way.
It's amazing. It is really, really amazing. But obviously, if you're in a state where you're selling $200,000 properties, you can't do that. But when you're in San Francisco or Marin County, where the median price of a home is $1.7 million, no problem. Have an iPad. How many would you like? It's a really great strategy. But man, I'll tell you, thank you so much for showing us how you guys stitch that all together. We have a lot of questions that have come in, and we're gonna get to the Q&A in just a minute. But before we do that, I'd like Greg to kind of review a little bit about sort of the history of Cloud CMA and how you guys came to approach the marketplace with this product. So from the technologist perspective, what is it that you were trying to accomplish, and can you show us like how agents put these CMAs together and things like that? I mean, we see the end product from Jeremy, but from the technology perspective, like what is it that helps you make these iPad listing presentations sing?
Yeah, Jeremy, you want to give me back?
Switch it over? Yeah, I just switched it over. You should get a pop-up here.
And again, while they're doing that, I want to remind everybody who's on the RE Tech&R today that if you go to the control panel for GoToWebinar, there's a questions box there, and if you type your question in, we'll have Jeremy and Greg or myself will answer each of your questions when we conclude what Greg's about to show us. So if you can hang on there, and don't forget we do have prizes to give away at the end. So if you stay on the call, you'll have an opportunity to do that. So Greg, you want to take it away?
Yeah, and just to kind of reemphasize what you just talked about there is that when we were setting this up and I had our marketing department buy an iPad to give away as a gift today or as a prize, they bought an iPad, but it didn't have the cellular option, right? It only had Wi-Fi option. I said, no, go buy another iPad, and I wanted to have the Wi-Fi and the cellular because, as Jeremy talked about, I think that's just totally key when you're using an iPad a listing presentation or in your business as well. I can tell you, once I got the cellular connectivity and I could get email and do anything on the go, it totally changed my life too. So the iPad we're giving away today is going to have both Wi-Fi compatibility and cellular compatibility. So you'll be kind of good to go with that.
Yeah, as a note along those lines, Greg, everybody should be aware that if you happen to have received an iPad or purchased an iPad that doesn't have Wi-Fi, don't feel crippled. Your smartphone that you have, whether it's an Android or an AT&T phone, probably has a hotspot feature on it. If you go into your local store, you can show that you can learn how to turn that feature on. You can pair your iPad with your iPhone, and in doing so, you can take an iPad that's not web-enabled and make it web-enabled through your phone. So it's a good backup plan. Don't feel like you're stifled if you don't have that feature, but it certainly is more convenient and more fun to have an iPad that is Wi-Fi enabled.
Yeah, and I use the iPad exactly for hooking up my laptop to to cellular as a kind of a hot spot, so that's cool. I'll go a little bit of history. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I think a quick demo of Cloud CMA may be helpful for the audience. First of all, I will say that as of this month, our customers have printed over 1.7, or not printed but published, 1.7 million Cloud CMA reports. So we're pretty proud of that fact. We have over 100,000 customers all over the United States, and these are active customers, and they're making reports all live long day. You know, and I think a testament to that is the speed, and what I mean by speed is how quickly they can kind of get up and running on Cloud CMA. We keep a lot of kind of metrics about that, and the first one we keep track of is how long does it take once a newbie signs on and they can make their first report. The fastest we've kind of recorded has been 156 seconds, so this is just, I think, a good testament, just a little over 2 minutes of how quickly they can make a report with Cloud CMA. As I said, everything is stored in the cloud, so all the reports are up in the cloud. You don't have to worry about it. You can access it from any device. It works on a Mac or an iPad, you know, a PC. It'll work on Firefox, Chrome, whatever, right? So Samsung, Galaxy, it doesn't matter. It's all web-based, so it works on all these different devices. One thing that's unique about Cloud CMA is we blend data, MLS data, with content from top websites. So from, as Victor mentioned, WalkScore, Yelp, Zillow, Google, Education.com. So it gives you more than just MLS information. It blends it with top content from other sites. And there's a little bit of magic. I think that the kind of email feature that Jeremy showed, I think that every great project has a bit of magic, meaning one of those moments where you go, wow, how did they do that? And I think there's a couple things there in Cloud CMA that is a little bit kind of magical. And we call that, you know, I guess a quick and dirty CMA. We call it a one-click CMA. A lot of agents call it different things there. And the integration. We are integrated, as I said before, with all the major MLS providers or vendors out there. So we had a big choice to make when we first started Cloud CMA, and that was whether or not to build a search interface in Cloud CMA to search MLS data. And we decided not to. We said to ourselves, the MLS is great for searching and culling and sussing out data that you need to kind of come up with comps. So let's leverage the MLS, and then once you've chosen your comps, you can just click a Cloud CMA button and send it over into Cloud CMA, and we do the rest. So I think you're going to kind of like that about the app here, right? So without, let me just bring up Cloud CMA here, just to give you a kind of couple highlights of what we got here. Make that a little bit bigger. Even though it's called Cloud CMA, really it's 4 different reports. So it works for buyers and sellers. We have flyers, property reports, which are reports on a single property, buyer tours, and CMAs, obviously. So, but it's called Cloud CMA, but it does all different types. If I look at the different types of reports, you notice I have a property report here. This would be just making a report on a single property. So all I would have to do here is click the create a new property report, and I put my client's name in here. I put the MLS number or the address, and I click on Fetch Listings, right? From there, I go to Publish, and that's going to print me out that's going to kind of show me a property report. And as I said before, with our property reports, we blend information from other top websites. So just by putting the MLS number here, you'll notice here's the front page. It's got, you know, some of the photos from the MLS that we've arranged in a montage kind of thing here. Who's prepared for? At the bottom of the report, it's all kind of geared towards you. There's a Contact Me page. That's me before the operation. And then we got the property detail pages, the MLS. Big typeface, big photos, very readable. Unlike the MLS printouts, very readable. Lots of nice listing photos, right? So you can have all of them there, or just the first couple. So really, we also integrate other information like area schools. Here are the closest schools, public and private, to this property address from Education.com. Here are the area photos. We use a service that's owned by Google called Panoramio, where photographers can upload those photos that are geocoded. We can say, hey, show me some area photos from around this address, and we can bring those over automatically. Area restaurants. What are the top 10 Yelp-rated restaurants close to this home? So very quick and easy to report. You can bring other loan scenarios. How much is it going to cost for me to get into this home, right? If I put 3% down, 15% down, 20% down. So really just very quick and easy, Nothing could be simpler as far as making one of these reports. And the beautiful part about it is once you know how to make one report in Cloud CMA, you know how to make the rest. So if I was going to jump over here to make a buyer tour, which would be a report you would generate for buyers as you're going to go showing them some properties, again, all I do is I click on Create a New Buyer Tour. Now, in the case of this, it's going to have more than one property, so I'm going to put several MLS numbers in there. And remember, you're starting from the MLS, you're finding the properties you want to show on tour, you're check marking them off, and then it sends it over to Cloud CMA here. So you're going to start from this screen. You can customize these reports in a lot of different ways. On the left-hand side, these are some of the pages I include in my CMA. Here are the pages that I have in my CMA. I can change the order of these pages if I want to, or how they print. If I don't want a page to be in there, I can just simply click on it and it'll send it over there. If I want to add pages, I can actually just click on and add the page here. So very simple to do that. We can change the color of each report page. So we have all the major franchise photos or color schemes in here. So you can choose what colors you want to include in your report, whether it's Better Homes and Gardens or Century 21. We've got all those color schemes in there.
Hey,
Another
while
nice
you're
feature.
on this page, can I ask you a question that's come up
Sure.
a couple of times here? So one of the questions that a lot of people are asking is there are pages that I like to include in my listing presentation. I can upload those into my template so that they're available, and there's a broker question saying, can I preload a lot of the information that I want in addition to the property information so that all my agents have access to it?
Absolutely. So there's two different ways of doing that. If you're a broker, I would recommend, as what Jeremy was talking about, is getting a custom theme. So we can change the whole layout of the report. You can add your own pages. You can change the typeface of the report so it looks nothing like a standard Cloud CMA report. Also, what you can do is anybody can do this is they can go to settings, put here to page contents, and we have a WYSIWYG editor where they could upload photos, type, create any page they want in Cloud CMA that would be part of the pages that they can include in the report they have. So two different options there that really help you really customize your Cloud CMA report. You can also change things like the typeface, right? So a lot of agents love this. They can kind of mess around with how what font they're using to print out the report. So this becomes a very popular kind of feature out there. So a lot of different things you can do here as far as for the buyer tour. The buyer tour is, again, another fantastic report that I'll kind of show you here. It's got pages that the front page is going to be where all the properties you're going to go look for, another contact me page. We have about 40 pages of custom written content that a professional writer's written about answering standard questions you get in any transaction, like what's the home buying process, map of listings, property detail page. Here's something really, I think, clever, a buyer comment sheet. So you can print this out, or even on an iPad, if you have the right PDF reader, you can kind of write on this, like hate the kitchen, love the kitchen. You know how with buyers, if you're looking at 4 or 5 properties, they all kind of merge into one, right? Listing photos, loan scenarios. So really great looking reports on that. And of course the CMA, right? So with the CMA, it's a little bit different because we have a subject property you kind of deal with, right? So here I put my client name in here. I put the address of the subject property. And if I've gone to the MLS and I've chosen the comps I want, they'll appear here. Or I can do a quick and dirty where they just basically bring up comps by proximity but nothing else. And then I can take a look at the listing data. And I can see that, here are some suggested list price options. I can kind of have it choose there, a net sheet. There's a map. Here are the listings information. So I can say, well, that's a little bit too high. I'm going to take that out so it kind of fades out. You can have adjustments. So if this property report up here is, if the price of the property is too, if this subject property doesn't have a pool, but this listing does have a pool, I can kind of go down here and say, pool, and I'll go minus 15,000, and that'll make an adjustment to the property, right? So really quick and easy to create these reports. The CMAs look fantastic. I'll just kind of bring one up here to kind of show you what we got here. So if you did upload a photo of the property, it'll just put an aerial picture and it'll put a marker right in front of the home here. contact me page, again, some more custom content, value of your home, right? A lot of information, beautifully presented, so quick and easy to create. You can kind of email these to your clients as quickly as you want. Just a fantastic report that we have here. One of the pages I do want to focus on, and we've mentioned this before, is the fact of how we can kind of do stuff with by blending data. And this is a page we use with Zillow. Like a lot of times in a listing presentation, many agents say to me the first thing out of seller's mouth is like, well, Zillow says my property's worth this much. What we do here is kind of unique. We bring over sold listing information like the address and the sold date and sold price from the MLS. But in the next column over, we put the Zestimate. And then we show the difference between what the sold price, the actual sold price was, and the Zestimate. And you can see that this can be, sometimes it's pretty accurate, as in this case, but a lot of times it's way off. So this is really a way that you can show the seller right away that, hey, maybe an algorithm or a computer isn't the best person to come up, the best way of coming up with a price of your home, but maybe I am because I'm really using real MLS data.
Is that a feature that can be turned off?
Yes, it is. Any of the pages, if you don't want to include Zillow data or the Yelp data or whatever, you don't have to show those pages at all.
Okay.
Last thing here, a couple last things here I'll show you is it's quick and easy to do this, to make this on an iPad. There's a link here called Present, right? So when I click on that Present link, and you could use this on let's imagine we're on an iPad, but this can totally work on your laptop as well. Imagine this is an iPad screen. I can actually just kind of swipe through here and kind of look at properties and give a great iPad presentation. Some placards here talking about the comps. So I can swipe here, I can swipe up, and I can show the different photos that are associated with this comp. I can swipe up again and show these photos. And I can tap on the photos to see them a little larger. So really a fantastic iPad listing presentation that you can kind of just bring up your iPad. And it's just a link. So you can send this to your client, and they can bring it up in their iPad, and they can kind of click on links and interact with it as well. But it also has a lot of content to kind of help you overcome objections and really get to selling the property here. So in a nutshell, we've got those things. Two things I'll mention, that the buyer tour and the CMA can also be printed in Spanish if you have some Spanish-speaking clients. So that helps out a lot. We just added a new feature where you can add a button to your website that basically helps you kind of capture what's my home worth leads. So if you put that in your website and you go to, let's just say, I bring up a blog here that I put one on there. It'll generate a button that says, what's my home worth? It becomes a way of kind of grabbing, you can integrate this with your website to kind of grab those types of leads.
Now, does that automatically create the CMA and send it to them, or does it just notify the agent?
It absolutely, it creates the CMA, sends it to the prospect, and then notifies you by email of the lead that you've sent a CMA out. It's totally branded to you, exactly a Cloud CMA lead, and it'll show up in your Cloud CMA and sent to whoever. These are some web leads that I have here. So yeah, real quick and easy. Works great on most MLS systems around the country. Let me see if I can kind of wrap up here. And then I think as Victor talked about, or sorry, Jeremy talked about, really you can create any report, Cloud CMA report, by just sending an email. And I think Jeremy did a good job of showing how you do that. Right now, as far as the offer we're making online with this webinar, is that typically our pricing is $34 a month, $299 or $399. Again, everybody gets a 30-day free trial on all these accounts, right? But we're also, if you decide to stick with Cloud CMA, we're lowering the prices here to $29, $249, or if you really want the biggest savings, the best value is $349 for 2 years. But wait, there's more. We're also going to include, as part of this webinar, what we call the Cloud CMA Power Pack. And what this does is it gives you, in fact, this slide is wrong. It's 50 covers, not 25, but 50 designer covers. So these are covers you can add to your Cloud CMA report that will show up on the iPad, or when you print them, that really kind of help your report stand out from the rest. It also includes 25 pages of extra content, 55 custom illustrations. So really just you'll get the discount, you get 30 days free, you get this power pack, and again it's 50 designer covers, not 25. And again, here we're not even saying that, it's totally free. So you're saving $150 by ordering today. All you have to do is go to Cloud CMA, click the green button, and at the end of the process you can use promo code RETech. And you'll get all the things that I talked about and I mentioned at the end of this demo here. Victor?
Wow, that was excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing all that information. What we're going to do right now is we're going to announce the winners of the Cloud CMA giveaway, and then we're going to enter into answering all your questions. So for those of you who only allocated an hour to this, we're on time, which is exciting. But so Greg, you're going to be sending the Cloud CMA with the Power Pack 1-year subscription to our winner, Ken Limburger. Ken Limburger. So congratulations, Ken. You're going to get everything that you saw here today for free for a year with the Power Pack. That's pretty exciting. Additionally, the winner of the iPad with the wireless program in it is Darcy Box. Darcy Box. So thank you guys both for attending today's webinar and staying on the call for the entire hour. We'll be getting those items out to you. So we have your email address, and that's how we'll reach out to you. So congratulations to both of you. We're going to conclude this recording, but get right into the Q&A.